Did you know that over 30,000 people are living without shelter across Texas, sleeping under bridges, in alleyways, and in cars? That's more than the entire population of some small towns, and the number is growing faster than anywhere else in the United States. From the bustling streets of Houston to the trendy corners of Austin, the homeless crisis in Texas has reached a breaking point. And yet, most of us walk by, unaware of the storm that's been building in our own backyards. This isn't just a story about poverty, it's about a system collapsing in real time. Sky-high rents, untreated mental illness, crumbling shelters, and rising drug use are all colliding to create what experts are calling a humanitarian disaster on American soil. In some cities, entire tent communities stretch for blocks, hidden in plain sight. Families, veterans, teens, and the mentally ill, all caught in a cycle they can't escape. The American dream, for them, it's nothing but a distant memory. So, what's really driving this crisis? And why does it seem like no one is fixing it? In this video, we'll uncover 10 disturbing truths behind Texas's homeless epidemic. Truths that will change how you see the state, the system, and maybe even your own city. Number 1. Skyrocketing housing costs. For decades, Texas carried a reputation as a place where the cost of living was low and dreams were affordable. People moved from California, New York, and other expensive states believing they could start over, buy a house, raise a family, and live comfortably. But that dream has quietly vanished. Over the last few years, housing prices across Texas have skyrocketed. In cities like Austin and Dallas, rents have doubled within a decade, and even smaller towns are seeing prices once unthinkable. A modest apartment that rented for $900 a few years ago now goes for over $1,600, while the average home price has jumped by nearly 40% since 2020. For many Texans, the math just doesn't work anymore. Their paychecks stay the same, but their rent keeps rising. What's worse is that this crisis isn't just hitting the unemployed, it's hitting the working class, the people keeping the state running. Teachers, waiters, construction workers, and nurses are all struggling to keep a roof over their heads. Some are forced to share small apartments with multiple families. Others live out of cars, motels, or tents near their workplaces. When every dollar goes to rent, there's nothing left for savings or emergencies. One unexpected hospital bill or car breakdown can push a family from barely surviving to sleeping on the streets. The people we see on sidewalks today aren't just statistics. They're often workers who simply couldn't afford the next rent hike. The real problem lies in how Texas is growing. Developers are racing to build luxury condos and high-end apartments because they promise bigger profits. Meanwhile, affordable housing projects are ignored, zoning laws limit multifamily buildings, and government funding for low-income housing hasn't kept up with demand. Every new high-rise tower adds to the skyline, but also to the displacement of those who once called these neighborhoods home. Skyrocketing housing costs aren't just changing the real estate market, they're reshaping the entire social landscape of Texas. For thousands, the American dream isn't just slipping away, it's being priced out completely. Number 1. Skyrocketing housing costs. For decades, Texas carried a reputation as a place where the cost of living was low and dreams were affordable. People moved from California, New York, and other expensive states believing they could start over, buy a house, raise a family, and live comfortably. But that dream has quietly vanished. Over the last few years, housing prices across Texas have skyrocketed. In cities like Austin and Dallas, rents have doubled within a decade, and even smaller towns are seeing prices once unthinkable. A modest apartment that rented for $900 a few years ago now goes for over $1,600, while the average home price has jumped by nearly 40% since 2020. For many Texans, the math just doesn't work anymore. Their paychecks stay the same, but their rent keeps rising. What's worse is that this crisis isn't just hitting the unemployed, it's hitting the working class, the people keeping the state running. Teachers, waiters, construction workers, and nurses are all struggling to keep a roof over their heads. Some are forced to share small apartments with multiple families. Others live out of cars, motels, or tents near their workplaces. When every dollar goes to rent, there's nothing left for savings or emergencies. One unexpected hospital bill or car breakdown can push a family from barely surviving to sleeping on the streets. The people we see on sidewalks today aren't just statistics. They're often workers who simply couldn't afford the next rent hike. The real problem lies in how Texas is growing. Developers are racing to build luxury condos and high-end apartments because they promise bigger profits. Meanwhile, Affordable housing projects are ignored, zoning laws limit multifamily buildings, and government funding for low-income housing hasn't kept up with demand. Every new high-rise tower adds to the skyline, but also to the displacement of those who once called these neighborhoods home. Skyrocketing housing costs aren't just changing the real estate market, they're reshaping the entire social landscape of Texas. For thousands, the American dream isn't just slipping away, it's being priced out completely. Number 3. Mental health crisis. Behind many heartbreaking stories on the streets of Texas is a silent battle, one being fought inside the mind. Mental health disorders are one of the most overlooked but powerful drivers of homelessness across the state. From severe depression and anxiety to schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and PTSD, thousands of Texans are living with mental illnesses that have gone undiagnosed, untreated, or ignored for years. Many of them are unable to hold down steady work, maintain stable housing, or navigate the complicated systems designed to help. Without access to consistent care, they slip through the cracks, and far too often, those cracks lead straight to the pavement. The mental health system in Texas is critically underfunded. In fact, Texas ranks near the bottom of U.S. states in per capita mental health spending. Public clinics are overwhelmed, wait lists stretch for months, and inpatient psychiatric beds are incredibly scarce, especially for low-income or uninsured individuals. When someone has a breakdown or becomes a danger to themselves, police often become the first responders. But instead of treatment, people are met with handcuffs or jail time, not therapy or support. It's a system that criminalizes suffering instead of healing it. For many living on the streets, mental illness becomes both the cause and the consequence of homelessness. The trauma of losing a home, being isolated from family, or facing violence and abuse in shelters only deepens psychological wounds. Without intervention, this becomes a cycle that's nearly impossible to escape. Treating mental health isn't just a moral issue, it's a practical one. Communities that invest in accessible, community-based mental health care see lower homelessness rates, fewer incarcerations, and safer public spaces. Until Texas takes mental health as seriously as it takes infrastructure and business growth, the streets will remain crowded with people who don't need punishment. They need help, dignity, and a chance to heal. Number 4. Addiction and substance abuse. Walk through any major homeless encampment in Texas, and you'll see the evidence. Discarded needles, foil, pipes, and people numbed by the weight of addiction. Substance abuse and homelessness have become tragically intertwined, creating a crisis that is both heartbreaking and dangerously misunderstood. From methamphetamine to fentanyl, the rise in highly addictive and deadly drugs has swept through communities like a storm. For many, addiction wasn't the cause of their homelessness. It became the coping mechanism after they lost everything. The reality is, addiction often begins with pain, physical, emotional, or psychological. Some were prescribed opioids for injuries and became dependent. Others turned to substances after trauma, mental illness, or years of instability. But once someone becomes homeless, addiction escalates fast. There's no safe space to detox, no rehab access, no support system. Many turn to drugs just to sleep, stay warm, or stay awake through the night. And without access to treatment or recovery services, the streets become a trap that's nearly impossible to escape, and for some, fatal. Texas has severely limited access to addiction treatment, especially for the uninsured or those without permanent addresses. Rehab programs often have long wait lists, high costs, and strict entry requirements. And while the crisis grows, so does the stigma. Instead of being offered help, many individuals are met with judgment or criminal charges. But research shows that cities investing in harm reduction, on-demand rehab, and mobile outreach are seeing real results: fewer overdoses, fewer hospitalizations, and more people choosing recovery. Until Texas shifts its approach from punishment to treatment, the cycle will continue. And every overdose we ignore is a life lost, not just to addiction, but to a system that never gave them a way out. If this video gave you a new perspective, like the video to help others discover it too. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Subscribe for more honest, in-depth videos on the issues that often go ignored. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Number 5. Broken shelter systems. When most people think of homelessness, they imagine there's at least one solution available: a shelter. But in reality, many of Texas's homeless shelters are overcrowded, underfunded, and deeply flawed. In cities like Austin, Houston, and Dallas, shelters routinely reach capacity, turning people away every night, even in dangerous weather. Others have strict requirements that many unhoused people can't meet: mandatory sobriety, curfews, IDs, or limits on personal belongings. These barriers often push people to sleep on sidewalks or in encampments, not because they want to, but because they have no better option. Some shelters lack even the most basic conditions of safety and dignity. Over the years, reports have surfaced of theft, assault, and abuse inside certain facilities. Imagine losing your home, your job, and your health, only to be forced into a space where your safety is still not guaranteed. For women, LGBTQ+ individuals, and those with mental illness, traditional shelters can be intimidating or even dangerous. Families are often separated, pets aren't allowed, and some people are forced to choose between being together or being indoors. These aren't real choices. These are survival decisions made under pressure and fear. Texas has also struggled with a lack of transitional housing, the critical bridge between emergency shelters and permanent homes. Without this middle step, many people get stuck in a revolving door, in today, out tomorrow, back on the street again. The shelter system, as it stands, is not designed to solve homelessness, it's built to manage it. But people don't need management. They need real paths to stability, support, and permanent housing. Until shelters are treated as a starting point, not a dead end, thousands of Texans will continue to sleep outside, not because they've given up hope, but because the system has given up on them. Number 6. Domestic violence and family breakdown. For many, homelessness doesn't begin with job loss or addiction. It begins with violence at home. Every year, thousands of women, children, and even men in Texas flee domestic abuse, often with nowhere to go. When the home becomes a threat, leaving is the only option, but the moment they walk out the door, they face another brutal reality: the streets. Many survivors end up homeless because there simply aren't enough safe spaces, shelters, or emergency services to support them. In a terrifying twist of fate, victims are forced to choose between staying with their abuser or facing life alone and unprotected. Texas has far too few domestic violence shelters, and the ones that do exist are constantly full. Family shelters turn away survivors daily due to limited space, lack of funding, or strict policies. Some victims with children can't find a place that will take them all together, and many shelters won't accept boys over a certain age. Others don't allow pets, and for someone escaping abuse, leaving behind a beloved animal can feel impossible. These small but critical barriers mean many victims stay longer in dangerous situations, or end up on the streets with nothing but a backpack and fear. What's worse is that homelessness caused by family violence is often invisible. Survivors may couchsurf, sleep in cars, or move from motel to motel trying to stay under the radar. But without long-term housing support, therapy, job assistance, or trauma-informed care, many fall deeper into poverty, isolation, or risky environments. Some even return to their abuser out of desperation. If we truly want to address homelessness in Texas, we can't ignore the link to family breakdown and domestic violence. This isn't just about buildings and beds, it's about creating a system that recognizes trauma, offers safety, and helps survivors rebuild with dignity and hope. Number 7. Criminalization of homelessness. In many parts of Texas, being homeless doesn't just mean living without a roof, it also means living under threat of arrest. Over the past few years, several cities across the state have passed laws that make it illegal to camp in public spaces, sleep in certain areas, or even sit or lie down on sidewalks. These laws may be aimed at cleaning up city streets, but in reality, they're just pushing homeless individuals further into hiding or straight into the criminal justice system. Instead of offering help, Texas is increasingly choosing handcuffs over housing. Take Austin, for example. After the city briefly decriminalized public camping, backlash from residents led to a statewide ban pushed by lawmakers. Now, individuals can face fines, citations, and even jail time just for setting up a tent or sleeping bag under a bridge. But here's the question no one wants to answer. Where are they supposed to go? Shelters are full. Affordable housing is out of reach. And being forced to relocate only leads to more instability, lost belongings, missed medical care, and separation from outreach services. It's not solving homelessness, it's just making it less visible. Criminalization not only fails to address the root causes of homelessness, it makes them worse. Once someone has a criminal record, finding a job or housing becomes even harder. It reinforces the cycle of poverty and punishment, turning a personal crisis into a legal one. Studies have shown that punitive approaches are more expensive and less effective than supportive housing and outreach programs. Yet still, Texas cities continue to use policing as a first response. The result? People pushed into the shadows, deeper into trauma, and further from recovery. If we want real change, We have to stop treating homelessness like a crime and start treating it like the public health emergency it truly is. Number 8. Gaps in foster care and juvenile systems. One of the most heartbreaking realities of homelessness in Texas is how many young people are affected and how many of them come straight from the state's own broken systems. Every year, thousands of teens age out of the foster care system at just 18 years old, often with no permanent housing, no financial support, and no safety net. These young adults are legally considered adults, but many are still dealing with trauma, instability, or mental health issues from years spent bouncing between group homes and temporary placements. The moment they leave care, they're on their own, and for far too many, that path leads directly to the streets. The statistics are staggering. According to multiple studies, as many as 1 in 4 youth exiting foster care become homeless within 2 to 4 years. Add to that teens leaving juvenile detention centers without reentry programs or family support, and it's clear Texas is failing its most vulnerable youth. The system doesn't prepare them for real life. There's no guaranteed housing, no long-term mentorship, and limited access to jobs or education. These are young people with potential, abandoned by a system that should have helped them transition into adulthood, not dropped them at the edge of survival. Many of these youth end up in dangerous environments, sleeping in cars, crashing on strangers' couches, or entering into exploitative situations just to survive. LGBTQ+ teens are especially at risk, often forced out by family rejection and finding even fewer support systems that understand their needs. The longer they stay on the streets, the harder it becomes to get back on their feet. Without intervention, they're at high risk for addiction, trafficking, mental illness, and chronic homelessness. If Texas wants to reduce homelessness in the long term, it must start by fixing the pipeline that's producing it, starting with real aftercare for foster youth, meaningful juvenile reintegration, and housing solutions that treat young people like what they are, an investment in the future. Number 9. Climate extremes and disaster displacement. Homelessness in Texas isn't just a result of policy failures or rising rent. It's also increasingly fueled by climate disasters and extreme weather events. Texas faces some of the most volatile weather in the country: scorching heat waves, freezing winter storms, flash floods, hurricanes, and even tornadoes. For those already on the edge, or already unhoused, these events can be life-threatening. And for low-income families living paycheck to paycheck, it often takes just one disaster to lose everything. Consider the 2021 winter storm that left millions without power and killed hundreds. For the homeless population, it was catastrophic. Shelters overflowed, outreach teams scrambled, and many were left exposed to sub-zero temperatures with no access to warmth or protection. During extreme heat, which is now breaking records across Texas summers, being homeless means enduring 120-degree sidewalks, dehydration, and heat stroke every single day. Public cooling centers help, but they're temporary, limited, and often inaccessible to those who truly need them. When disaster strikes, the homeless are not just vulnerable, they're invisible in emergency planning. But the crisis doesn't stop with those already homeless. Climate disasters often create homelessness by displacing renters and homeowners alike. When floods destroy mobile homes, or fires wipe out low-income apartment complexes, many don't have insurance, savings, or anywhere else to go. For families already living on the margins, one natural disaster is enough to push them into long-term instability. And with climate change making these events more frequent and more severe, Texas is facing a future where more people will be homeless, not less. Addressing homelessness in this new era means understanding that it's not just about economics or addiction. It's also about survival in a state where nature can be just as unforgiving as the streets. Number 10. Lack of statewide strategy. Perhaps the most frustrating part of Texas's homelessness crisis isn't just the causes, it's the chaotic, inconsistent response. Unlike some states that have developed coordinated, statewide plans, Texas has largely left the burden of managing homelessness to individual cities and local nonprofits. The result? A patchwork of policies, shelters, and services that vary wildly from one city to the next. While one city may fund outreach and transitional housing, another may prioritize law enforcement and public bans. There's no unifying vision, and without one, long-term progress remains out of reach. This lack of leadership creates confusion, duplication, and missed opportunities. Data isn't always shared between cities. Funding gets lost in bureaucracy. Nonprofits compete for limited grants instead of collaborating. In the absence of a clear statewide plan, cities are forced to react rather than prepare. And when the number of unhoused people is growing every year, reacting isn't enough. It's simply chasing the problem in circles. What Texas desperately needs is a comprehensive, long-term strategy, one that brings together housing, healthcare, addiction services, mental health treatment, job training, and disaster response under one coordinated effort. But it's not just about bureaucracy, it's about political will. Addressing homelessness isn't always popular, and in many places, it's politicized. That has left real solutions on hold while debates continue about who's responsible. But make no mistake, until Texas steps up with state-level commitment, the problem will continue to grow, and the people on the streets will continue to suffer. If we want safer communities, healthier cities, and a stronger future, we need to stop pushing this crisis from one county to another. It's time to face it head-on, with compassion, coordination, and the courage to make bold, statewide change. What's happening across Texas isn't just a housing issue, it's a human crisis, unfolding in plain sight. From skyrocketing rents and a broken shelter system to untreated mental illness and climate disasters, the causes of homelessness are complex, but the consequences are painfully simple. Tens of thousands of people with nowhere to go, and no one coming to help. The faces you see on the streets aren't strangers. They're veterans, mothers, teenagers, workers, people who once had homes, jobs, and dreams. Now, they're struggling to survive in a system that was never built to catch them when they fell. This crisis won't be solved overnight, but change starts with awareness and with the courage to face uncomfortable truths. If we don't act now, these numbers will keep rising, cities will keep pushing people into the shadows, and Texas will continue to be one of the most dangerous places in America to be poor and unhoused. But it doesn't have to stay this way. If this video opened your eyes, hit the like button. It helps get this message in front of more people. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe is the real cause of homelessness in your city? Subscribe for more deep, investigative content on the issues no one else wants to talk about. And don't forget to turn on notifications, because the next video might just challenge everything you thought you knew about America.